Have you ever felt like you're not you anymore? It's like you're living a life, but you're not living your life anymore. I was working a stable, great 9 to 5 job in the middle of Tokyo. I was able to achieve a lot of my goals and I was living the dream life that I wanted. But I started to feel this strong emptiness. I lost interest and motivation in a lot of things that I used to get excited about. I ended up feeling like my personality was just completely gone and I didn't know who I was anymore. If you've been following me for a while, you know how this story ends. I had the biggest burnout in my life and I ended up leaving my stable 9 to 5 job. And one of the best takeaways I got from this whole experience is that now I'm better at avoiding burnout and dealing with burnout. And that's what I want to share with you today. The very first tip I want to share with you is to sense it when burnout is crawling onto you. But how do you know? How do you sense it, right? For me, I kind of developed the sense myself, so it's kind of hard to explain. But one thing I knew for sure along the way was that burnout doesn't happen overnight. And I was right. I did some research and turned out there are 7 stages of burnout. And I think it's really helpful to know these stages so that you can spot it at an early stage and prevent you from having a complete burnout. Stage 1, excessive ambition. Are you a high achiever? Do you always feel like you need to be doing more, faster? Then you might be more prone to a burnout. I definitely was. Back in the corporate world, I always wanted to do more, faster, and this is not necessarily a bad thing because that's the reason why I was able to achieve a lot of things that I've accomplished. But it's super important to find the right balance, and I'm gonna talk more about how I do things differently now later in the video. At stage 2, you start to neglect your needs. You start to forget to change your clothes, take a shower, to eat. You start to kind of neglect your basic needs that you need to do for yourself on a daily basis. It might be difficult to distinguish from being lazy, but not taking care of yourself is never gonna do any good for your mental health or physical health anyways. So if you feel like you're on this stage right now, stay away from your phone, eat well, maybe take a bath, and try to go to bed early tonight. At stage 3, you start to feel denial. If you're on this stage, you might find yourself easily getting frustrated by the smallest things that didn't bother you before. I talked about this in my previous video, but when I was working a job back in the corporate world, I used to be just so irritated and frustrated by the smallest things. I had this rage within me that I just couldn't control anymore, and this stage clearly explains why I was feeling the way I was, which weirdly kind of makes me feel better because I thought that's just my personality and there was something wrong with my personality that I needed to work on, and now I know that it was because of burnout. At stage 4, you start to withdraw from situation and emotion. You start to ignore your texts from friends, you start to avoid social events, and your social life becomes pretty much non-existent. And removing yourself from situation and emotion is gonna get you to stage 5, emptiness and depersonalization. At this stage, you start to feel this overwhelming sense of emptiness, and you start to feel like you're not you anymore. I can really relate to this because I clearly remember that I was feeling this way, and it was as if I was watching my life from outside of myself, from third person's perspective. I was living a life, but it wasn't my life anymore, if that makes sense. And then you get to stage 6, depression and numbness. The emptiness gets just so strong that you feel numb almost. You have no motivation or interest, you don't know where to go. It's like you're lost at sea and you don't know which way to go, or you don't even probably have the motivation to go to whatever direction. So you're kind of floating in the open sea. And then you get to stage 7, exhaustion and full burnout syndrome. This is when you reach a breaking point and you have a total mental breakdown. You're emotionally and mentally exhausted and you want to do everything to avoid reaching to this stage. So I want to share some tips that I learned over the years so that you can avoid burnout and deal with burnout better. Tip number 1 is to take a small break. You want to be paying attention to your health at all times, and whenever you find yourself at early stage of burnout, you want to slow down and try to take small break from work. It can be an evening off or a couple days off, or if you can, maybe a week off from your work, because taking a small break now is so much better than taking a year off to recover from a complete burnout. I actually took a week off last week. That's why I didn't upload a video and I decided to take it slow for the rest of the month. During those breaks, I think it's really important to be intentional about how you spend your time. You want to spend time on what you value the most in your life. Maybe it's working on your relationships or exercising for your health or working on a new hobby, which I did. During my time off, I started crocheting and I'm genuinely having so much fun with it. And I'm just so glad that I finally gave it a try because I've been wanting to try it for a long time. This might be obvious, but another thing you want to prioritize during your break is to take time on your self-care. Personally, whenever I want to treat myself, I like to take a bath when it's still bright outside. I find it really relaxing to take a bath during the day. I don't bring my phone or book or Kindle. It's just me and sometimes maybe a candle to make it cozy. Now, I know that some of you cannot just take small breaks easily, so I want to share some tips that anyone can try to implement today in day-to-day life. These are the things that I wish I had known on day 1 in my career, so I hope these are helpful for you too. Have identity outside of your job. When I was working a corporate job, I put way too much identity on my job and my career became my whole identity. So whenever something bad happened at work, they really hit me hard and I took them really personal. When your job is your only identity, whenever something goes wrong at work, you have like a mini identity crisis. So imagine when you get laid off or lose your job for whatever reason, you will most likely have a full-blown identity crisis, which can lead you to depression and anxiety, and that's not gonna be fun at all. Remember that you are so much more than just your job. Don't make everything in your life work related, and make sure that you spend time on non-work related hobbies. Don't only hang out with your coworkers. Try to reach out to friends and family that you haven't talked to in a while, which I used to be so scared to do. I was so scared to ask people to hang out with me. So if you're that way, I totally understand. But I mean, who doesn't like being asked to hang out, right? So do it. And if they say no, maybe they're just too busy. So don't take it personal. The next step is to know the tasks that actually matter to you and really focus on them. These days, there are so many convenient tools like email, Slack. It's like you have a digital tool for every task that you do. And although these things can be convenient, many times you end up spending hours and hours talking about work through emails and through meetings, and you have so little time left to do the actual work that you signed up to do in the first place. And this can lead you to a mismatch in values, which is one of the common causes for a burnout. When I was working a 9-to-5 job, I always felt like I needed to respond to emails as soon as possible. So whenever task I was working on, I always had a Gmail tab on, and I ended up having so much less time on working the task that I was supposed to work on. Later on, I came to a conclusion that I actually hate emails, and a lot of emails can wait. They're not that urgent. So I tried my best to minimize the time I spent on responding to emails. I learned to prioritize tasks that actually matter to me right now, that is to make a video. I really tried to allocate more time on what actually matters, and I haven't really had a major burnout in a long time, so far it's working well for me. The next tip is a little bit similar to my previous point, but it's to turn off distractions. I used to have all the notifications on, like emails, chat, Google Calendar, social media, you name it, I had notifications on. And this was really a bad idea, because every time you receive a notification, your brain needs to use energy resources to switch your focus to the notification, decide if you want to do something about it or not, and switch your attention back to the original task that you were supposed to be working on. If you do this all day, things add up, and you're gonna end up using all of your brain energy, and you're gonna completely tire your brain out. Now I know that this is the reason why I used to feel so mentally drained, that I didn't really have enough mental capacity to work on hobbies or hang out with my friends. So I ended up just binge watching Netflix shows. As a result, I stopped working on my hobbies, so I didn't have any hobbies anymore, and my job pretty much became my entire life, which led me to a complete burnout. I'm still learning, I'm not perfect, but now I'm so much better at eliminating distractions. I pretty much turn off every notifications as much as possible, both for my contents and for my personal use. And I honestly rarely feel mentally exhausted anymore, so for me it's working. I really hope what I shared today was helpful. Let me know what you thought in the comment below. If there are any tips that I didn't mention, please let me know in the comment as well, because I want to know how you deal with burnout. And as usual, thank you so much for watching this, and I'm gonna see you in the next video.